What's good, YouTube? What's good? It's Stormy B, man, and I am back. Welcome to another edition of Kung Fu Film Focus, where we will discuss today a nice swordplay wuxia film from 1983, Golden Harvest Studios in Hong Kong, called Duel to the Death. Duel to the Death is a film that was directed by Tony Chung, a noted filmmaker in Hong Kong at the time, and someone who had a major stake in films of the martial arts brand in Hong Kong. Tony Chung was a man who was an actor and also a fight choreographer, and later moved into directing. Some of the best wuxia films, and wuxia is swordplay films, made in Hong Kong and Southeastern Asia were made by Tony Chung. So today, from 1983, we'll be discussing his film, Duel to the Death. I want to welcome whoever's out there listening. I appreciate you all taking the time out. Please hit the like button as we will get into discussing this extraordinary film, one of the best films with wire work, films that displayed fantasy type martial action with swordplay. Duel to the Death was just that type of film. The thing about Duel to the Death was it was a film that was made in 83, which had kind of passed the heyday of swordplay films by. But the wonderful aspect of Duel to the Death was the entire production was greater than anything that Golden Harvest had done swordplay wise before. And this film just came too late in the genre. But man, oh man, if you get a chance to watch this film, it has everything that you like about the action films of the Far East with swordplay. You have ninjas, you have Shaolin monks, you have other martial artists that are adept at hand and foot fighting, but they're wielding swords in this film. So this film was a special film made toward the ends of the heyday of the swordsman film. Now, swordsman films had been around in China since the late 30s. However, they always had women actors to play the heroes in the films. Even when they were playing male parts, the parts were played by women. That was the thing about the Chinese culture. A lot of times when film depicted heroes and machismo, it was women who played these roles. And it continued on even when it changed, when male actors began to take roles. You would still have tremendous female presence in these films where female actresses would be under the guise of a man in the role that they're playing in the film. And you could tell it's a woman actress. It's just that in the films, they pretended that the women were men. So that's one small historical notation about wuxia films in China. Another thing about this particular film was we had two great actors who always seemed to play minor roles in the Hong Kong film industry, particularly with action and martial art films during this time. The first actor I want to mention, who was also the lead for this film, is Norman Chu. Norman Chu is noted from being in Shaw Brothers films. He was known for the bastard swordman's roles. He played usually co-starring acting roles in films that featured Gordon Liu, the master killer. And later, when he began to, when his contract was up with Golden Harvest, he went over. His contract was up with Shaw Brothers Studio. He went over to Golden Harvest and starred in a couple of action films there, where his kung fu skills were on display. Where he played in The Loot and also The Challenger, and he began to cut his teeth as a leading actor in those films. Golden Harvest didn't mind giving an opportunity to lead actors, because when they were with Shaw Brothers, a lot of talent were held back because Shaw's would feature only a handful of people in their annual budgets for starring roles. So there was so much talent that was being held back. When their contracts came up, Golden Harvest Studios, along with Raymond Chow, was snatching up a lot of this talent. And Norman Chu was one of those actors, and Duel to the Death became a signature role for him, where he was able to display his martial prowess with a sword. He was also joined by Damien Lau, and Damien Lau was an actor who was a co-starring actor in Hong Kong films, and he made a handful of action films like The Heroic Trio, this film, and he was in a couple of other swords films. But Damien just didn't seem to take off like some of the other actors did. But it was to no avail, because he was like a character actor. He didn't mind that. There was a particular personality who came on that kind of assumed the roles that he would take, and was much better, far better. And that was Leslie Chung, the late Leslie Chung. Duel to the Death also had a lead actress playing in this film, and this was none other than Flora Chung. Now, Flora Chung, she only starred in a handful of Hong Kong films. She came from a well-to-do background, and she was just not noted, and accepted by the Hong Kong audiences. But she was very attractive. In this film, she plays a daughter of a kung fu master swordsman who wished he had a son, and he trained her as if she were a boy, and she walked around like a boy in the film, or a male in the film. Again, another play that goes back through the history of the swords play films in China. Acting career, Duel to the Death actually ended up being her last action film in 1983. But she's still around today, and I think she's doing something along the lines of a fashion designer or something, and she's in some interviews talking about her time in the Hong Kong film industry. What was amazing about her in this film, she did very well for what was asked of her physically to execute martial prowess. And of course, she was doubled in some scenes, but she came off convincing. And that's very important in a Hong Kong film. This is the type of thing that you can always look and see when a production is well done. You can't hardly tell when the stuntmen or actors have been exchanging their roles. Duel to the Death is one of the best films I've ever seen production-wise. I mean, the special effects are great for the time that it was, especially. You were talking about 1983 there, where eventually Chu Hark and some others came back from America and started making their films after being educated in the U.S. and having had a little inside track on how to do certain special effects. And you had films like Zoo, Warriors from the Magic Mountain that came out around here. Another version of The Swordsman came out. So Duel to the Death was like right at the end of a heyday of swordplay films. I think production-wise, it's as good as anything that Shaw Brothers had done. Shaw Brothers being the leading production company out of Southeast Asia, and they always had some of the best and most notable actors playing in their films. But I would put Duel to the Death pitted up against anything that Shaw's had done. It's an amazing film, a very good story where that Tony Ching Su Tung also had a hand with a host of collaborators in writing this story. And the synopsis of the story goes as this. It says, every decade, representatives from Shaolin face the Japanese school and their disciple in order to find out who's the best. And the two warriors in this generation, Damien Lau's character and Norman Chu's character, they're the warriors that are accepted. Now, Damien Lau's character came up through the Shaolin Temple. So his training was in Shaolin Kung Fu and Shaolin swordplay, and Norman Chu was from Japan. And the Shogun had assigned him for this particular duel, and they also wanted him to represent them. So as they prepared themselves for this showdown, something nefarious behind the scenes takes place, because the Shogun wants to ensure victory for Japan. And the Shaolin School of Martial Arts took exceptional pride in what they were doing. So they wanted to make sure that Norman Chu's character, Hashimoto, the Japanese, would not be victorious. But it wasn't about cheating for them. It was just that they wanted their student representative, Ching Hua, who was Damien Lau, they wanted him to be his best. And he was considered in China, the master swordsman, but just unbeknownst to the Japanese. So as they began to prepare to meet one another, the subplot has representatives from Japan trying to undermine this face-off between these two great warriors. The film has such beautiful settings, the landscapes where it was shot in partial Japan, Korea, and China. The music soundtrack for the film is excellent. Everything was extremely high level for Golden Harvest. This film came after they finished Bruce Lee's Game of Death, where they had a chance to work with American film companies again to help finish that film, Columbia Pictures, and they decided to go for it with budgets beyond that. Game of Death came out in 1978. This film came out in 1983, and you could tell what they had learned because they began to put the value of their dollar into their productions. I can't speak on it enough how great and beautiful this film is to look at, to watch. The action is top notch, and the performances by the actors top notch. I want to take a moment to go to the chat. I see we've got some people speaking there. Underground Asylum is out there. He says, salute Stormy B-Man. Chi-Town's Finest says, give you some love, Stormy. I'll be back when I finish work. Appreciate that. The Black Banter is out there and says, Stormy B-Man, respect to you, brother. 100 always. Thank you for that. And Walter Wilder is out there, says, Duel to the Death is a brilliant and beautifully shot film. It sure is. I would like to recommend, before I even finish this review, if anyone who loves swordplay films from the Hong Kong martial arts brand, please check this film out if you haven't seen it, because it is truly one of the best that China and Hong Kong has to offer. This is one great film, people. Walter Wilder also says the Japanese sent a spy dressed a Japanese Buddhist priest to ensure his victory by way of Eddie Ko. Yes, sir, Walter Wilder. And if you let Stormy, finish, he could do the review. He can mention those things for you. So, sip you a drink and just sit back and let Stormy B, man, do the review. You know what I'm saying? Come on, man. If you've seen the film, you know about the production, you know these things, enjoy. Everybody, there's a reason there is not a steering wheel on the passenger side of a car. You know what I'm saying? Or in the back seat. But I digress. As we talk about Duel to the Death a little bit more, I wanted to say that Tony Chung, his choreography with swordplay is so on point. You can see it in any film play. And then because this film depicts Japanese as well as Chinese, it doesn't look 100% Chinese. He knew what he was doing. As he showed the action in this film, you get a chance to see the technique of Chinese swordplay, and you also get a chance to see the technique of Japanese swordplay. There are quick camera cuts and angles which also show you the action, and it's being shot in a manner of which everything is kind of happening very fast. It gives you the illusion that these people are truly, truly experts. Now, some of them, yes, that played in this film are martial artists, but all of them were not adept at what they were doing. So it's like the choreography has to come off a certain kind of way. And that's where you really get a chance to see the actors and the actresses shine. There are some scenes here that are shot so beautifully. You wonder, like, how did they get that camera angle? And I had a chance to catch a special edition of this film from a company that used to put out, the DVDs on these films. There's a behind the scenes segment where they were showing you how they did wire work for these movies. They actually bring a large crane on site so they can get the crane as close to the area where they want to film the action. And they have this long wire that goes down, and they can get down in a cavernous area like when you see depicted behind me here. And they can actually film these guys tied to wires flying through the air and everything and doing their martial choreography. It's totally awesome. Really great stuff to see. In this film, there are characters who are, side characters like Walter Wilder mentioned. We got Eddie Cole playing a priest from the Shogun who's sent to spy on Hashimoto to ensure that regardless of what transpires, the Japanese come out on top. And this leads to some ugliness that happens, like when they're having dinner and someone's trying to poison Ching Hua. Some of the other participants of the event who wanted to come to watch and see the match take place from China, warriors, they were either killed or kidnapped. It was just really weird. And Hashimoto, when he found out that the priest was doing these things, he felt insulted, So at some point, he had to fight the priest. And that's where the ninjas come in. The ninjas were trying to steal scrolls from the Shaolin Temple that talked about their martial prowess and the skill sets that they had. So they would steal documents from the Shaolin Temple, and the Shaolin monks had to battle the ninjas, and the ninjas still got away with the scrolls of documents and everything. So the film was like, it was a lot going on in the movie, but it was very entertaining. We get a chance to see, I'm trying to think of the guy who was, I'm trying to think of the guy. There was another lead actor in here who played a small role. Can't think of his name at the time. But the teacher who was of the Chinese sword school where they were hosting the event, the Holy Sword school, he was also trying to do some nefarious things because he was mad that his family was no longer chosen to host to participate in the event. So, here he is, he's trying to set things up, but his daughter wasn't good enough to be a student to represent, and he was bitter about that. It was like the guy just, I don't know, he wanted his daughter to be better, but he was also damning her at the same time for being a woman and everything. So all of this stuff plays out on camera. The acting is pretty good. I remember at one point, because Ching Hua, played by Damien Lau, pictured here behind me, she saw him save some people who were being bullied, and she admired his chivalry. And he told her, he was like, I don't know why you as a woman, walking around like a man, you should, allow your beauty to show through or whatever. And she started falling for him and everything, she's like, oh, so she started putting on her womanly clothes and robes and stuff and putting makeup on and stuff. And her father was looking at her like, he was mad because she was, as long as she was being a tomboy, he was enjoying that, But when his daughter was like trying to, look pretty and stuff, he told her, they were sitting at the table, and she had asked him, Dad, why are you doing such and such? He was like, you shut up. He was like, all you think about is dressing up for Ching Hua. He was like, he bust her out, made her feel all bad and everything. So she went back and dressed up like a boy again. But Ching Hua was telling her, you should let your beauty show. He's like, all you can think about is Ching Hua. These old fathers, man. That bastard, man. He didn't want his daughter to fall in love or nothing. It's like that dude was a master swordsman. That's who you would want her to fall in love with, right? And Norman Chu, as the film progressed and he saw what was going on, the ninjas always coming about doing stuff. So, he and Ching Hua had to fight these ninjas off, and they were in the forest. There's a little clip here I put together, just a quick clip of how the action was and the swordplay was. These guys, these ninjas, man, they were something else, man. Coming out there trying to take over and stuff like that. But Norman Chu's character was really, he was a heroic guy himself. They showed some of the elements. That's what I liked about this film. It showed the character of both leading men, right? They were similar, but they just had different philosophies due to their culture. At Hashimoto's swordplay school, they were showing the little boys, and they were practicing and everything. And there was a little boy, he was being defeated by a bigger kid. And he calls him over and he tells him in his ear what to do. He's like, and he goes back out there and he beats the boy, and the boy runs off and everything. And he walks off, Hashimoto walks off from this. But the little boy comes back and thanks him, for teaching him how to defend against the larger opponent. But he also had a victory, a pre-victory celebration night when he was leaving to face off against the Chinese swordsman, and they were drinking and partying and everything. And he was participating in the event, but he wasn't like, you know, he was trying to keep his sensibilities about himself, but he was enjoying the ceremony and everything, but he knew what was ahead. So his boys was trying to get him, oh, drink it up, man, you know, party and stuff. And he was like, oh, you know. And then his master came and gave him a toast and said, hey, you're going to be facing the Chinese swordsman, the #1 swordsman of China. He was like, we want you to win and this and that. And he said, we salute you with a drink. And he kowtowed to his master. But the master later attacks him in the woods. And he has to defend himself. So he didn't know it was his master. The person that attacked him had a mask on and this and that. So he's able to slay the attacker, which is his master. And the master pulls the mask off at the last moment and says, it's the duty of a samurai to die by the hands of another swordsman, you know. And he's like, you showed your prowess, and you know, so what are the commandments of our school? And he asked him to read them off, and as he's reading them off, Hashimoto, the master, falls dead, you know. And all of that shows is that he basically picked the right student, because even under the influence of alcohol in the woods at night with so much on his mind, he was able to defend and defeat an assailant that was trying to kill him, which is the master. And so the master died with pride. So it's like these are character devices that when they show this in the film, you have to understand with martial arts, this is the level of depth that had come after the Bruce Lee films. This is the kind of stuff that Bruce Lee was trying to convey. Before, they would just show guys fighting and they didn't know why they was fighting sometimes. Sometimes they didn't care why they was fighting. Sometimes they just fought to fight. But in this film, this is about pitting the best against the best. And for those of you out there that listen to our boxing content and everything, this is what it's all about. But also what's inside the guy. If the pupil has the proper instructions and teachings, he's able to carry that out in his actions in whatever he does when he goes out into the world. A sensei can be proud that he's put his pupil out there and he's capable. And that's shown on both the Shaolin side with Damien Lau's character, and it's shown on this side of the Japanese with Norman Chu's character, which is, again, that's what makes this film a cut above all the others that came before it, man. It's really something that you have to see these films, watch them on a regular basis to understand what's being said about them here. You know, it goes a long way to be able to convey what all of this means. But for martial art film lovers, they get it right away. They get it right away. Walter Wilder says, hey, Brother Storm, you notice this happens a lot in these movies. Laugh out loud. What particular point happens a lot, Walter Wilder? I'm not sure, because I'm talking, rumbling on. So remind me in the chat, what are you saying that happens a lot in these films? Yeah, man, this film here, and there's this point where these guys are talking. They're both, standing on the shores, and they're having a conversation about fighting and how the spirit of what they bring to their fights, they don't give up, they don't give in. And the difference in their cultures separates what their actions are, but they both are motivated by the same principles. It's amazing. And that's what's happening in our world. We have people from different cultures, and they mean similar things at times, but it's the fact that you are from a different culture that makes people refrain from accepting. It's like, just because you came from over there, or because your skin is this color and not that color, that someone doesn't want to accept you for who you are. But hey, damn it, we're on this earth together. So it doesn't matter where you come from. It matters who you are as a person. And there's so much of that in martial art films that they bring it really home in this film. There's also a time in the movie where Eddie Cole's character is out there to do some terrible things, and he and his ninja gang, they come up with a plan to trap all of the Chinese warriors, including the Shaolin abbot who was going to attend this. They capture him, and they're gonna like kidnap them and take them to China. And it's discovered, and so the warriors, Norman Chu and Damien Lau, have to fight these guys to liberate the guys, you know, take them out of the hands of custody. And there's some other stuff that takes place where the daughter of the sword master, where he wants to fight Damien Lau's character, Ching Hua. You know, he wants to fight Ching Hua, and his daughter is trying to intervene and say, you know, you're too, you know, you're being a traitor to the nation. You know, you're trying to help the Japanese. What are you doing? And he's fighting with his daughter. But he tells her, like, you know, he backs her out of the way, and he's like, you don't understand, you know. But he tragically kills his daughter in this scene where she was just trying to stop him from attacking Ching Hua. And then after she dies, he's like holding her and cradling her in his arms saying, "Oh, don't die. Come back and I'll teach you some more kung fu." He's like, the dude was really warped, man. And he deserved his. I'm telling you. He really deserved his. Walter Wilder says, when the main character gives a female a compliment on her looks, whether she is an enemy or a friend, the female just melts. Yeah. You're right, man, Walter Wilder. That's exactly. It's almost like those Chinese ladies aren't used to somebody calling them beautiful or something. So it's like, man, the panties come off, right? It's like, oh, you're such a noble lady. You know, you should wear your hair like this or that. And, you know, and then next thing you know, all she's thinking about is that guy and shit. He's like, oh, I want to give him the panties. These movies are funny, man. But you're right, Walter Wilder. That's exactly what they do, man. That always happens, man. Always happens. And it's like, you know what? I guess in their society, because the men are really rough on the women and stuff. So when a man shows that kind of niceness or whatever, they just can't help themselves then. They have to go, you know, go for it. You know, go for broke. But yeah, this movie is one of those that is really exciting, has great scenes. We even got Casanova Wong in here, who is known as the great Korean kicker, right? He's a swordsman in this film, and he's being attacked in this particular scene by the ninjas who are trying to capture all the great fighters in China, right? So they come flying in on kites, man. The ninjas are in the air on kites. It's like, these ninjas are something else in this film, man. They come up out the ground. They come out the sky. There's one ninja that turns into it's like they were like all stacked on top of each other, and they look like a giant, and they're following the Shaolin abbot. And then as he turns to look up at them in the sky, and then they break off into smaller, you know, regular guys, but they were all kind of in one piece looking like a giant ninja, and it breaks off. Again, special effects like that, great stuff for a film like this at the time that they made it, man. And it's just one of those things where you can enjoy it and look at it, and it's like, wow, Duel to the Death is all right, man. I'm glad to have it in my collection. It's one of those films that I could go back to time and again. I actually just watched it again last night before doing this show. You know, I was supposed to do this show yesterday, and I decided not to. I just pushed it off to today because Stormy B, man, trying to pull back from some of doing some of the shows and content that I'm doing. It's like I put a lot of my time and my effort into stuff, and I'm not getting, the response that I had hoped that I would be getting. So it's like I'm not going to be wasting my time, but when I do something, I'll do it, to the best that I can. And if people watch it, they watch it. If they don't, they don't. But I'm not out here competing with anybody. I'm just out here trying to provide great content and great subjects. So yeah, that's what I'm about. Like I said, I'll be doing more of my Kung Fu material because, I have a good stock and stake in that, and unlimited source material. So, like I said, I could do Kung Fu film reviews 2 a week for the next 3 years and never do the same film twice. So that's how I got it going with the Kung Fu. And don't matter. Jupiter B is out there. He says, salute Stormy B, man. Salute chat. Salute to you, Jupiter B. Glad to see you out there. Appreciate you stopping by. He says, never seen Duel to the Death. We'll find it. Jupiter B, check out Duel to the Death, and I guarantee that you will come away from this as a person saying, hey, man, this is one for the books. You know what I'm saying? This is one to keep people talking. So, but this is that scene that I was telling you guys about a moment ago, where the giant ninja is following the Shaolin abbot, and when he turns around and glares up into the sun and he sees them, and they all break off into their separate bodies, but they were united as one, giant ninja following him. This is great stuff, man. I mean, even for 1983 Golden Harvest Studios, which Golden Harvest was behind Shaw Brothers as far as their productions. They gradually, by the time they caught up to the quality of Shaw Studios, Shaw had started to, dismantle their film productions and going into television. So Shaw Brothers thought that TV was going to be the wave of the future, not realizing that audiences are still going to enjoy and want to see productions on the big screen. That's why Golden Harvest ended up taking over the film industry in the early 80s and mid 80s. And so Shaw's, they stayed in TV. And then in the early 90s, they decided to try to bring the film studio back. But they lost a lot of time, The smaller production companies that branched out under Golden Harvest Studios started coming out, different film companies. But Duel to the Death is one of those films that really shows what can be done as far as Kung Fu films, the Kung Fu films, the swordplay films, the ninja films. A lot of that just happened all in this movie. That's why it's so great too, because even though it's a wuxia, which is swordplay, the fact that it is that, but it has ninjas. It has the Shaolin, because everybody know the Shaolin fighters can fight, right? But when you've got Shaolin fighting the ninjas, that raises the bar right there. Walter Wilder says to Jupiter B, it's worth it. Check it out. He's saying, check out Duel to the Death. And D-Style Boxing is out there. He says, Duel to the Death. I'm already intrigued. Hey, D-Style, this is one of the best wuxia films ever made. It was made in 1983 by Golden Harvest Studios, the same studios that produced the Bruce Lee films and later Jackie Chan's better films. This film is awesome, man. It's awesome, from 1983. And the actors in this film are actors who came from Shaw Brothers Studio, and Damian Lau came from television. So these guys were able to raise the bar when they made this film. But the action is directed by Tony Ching Su Tung, who was an incredible action choreographer, particularly with swordplay films. If you look on his body of work with swordplay films, he's done some of the best that were ever made, including a few Shaw Brothers swordplay films. So, yeah, Tony Ching was a tremendous contributor to the industry. You know, there are scenes in this film that are just breathtaking. Like I said, the landscapes, how things are shot, temples and wooded areas and everything really stand out in this film. Give you a taste of what, when you could take someone who has that art eye and can apply that to martial arts, like Jet Li's Hero. Tony Ching Su Tung was the fight choreographer for that film, Hero. If you ever saw Jet Li's Hero and the swordplay that they did and the wire work that they did in that film, it was so amazing and stunning. It was Tony Ching Su Tung, action choreographer and action team, who did that work in that film. D. Hodges is out there. He says, "What up, Stormy and chat? LDBC, salute, family." Yes, sir. And Bruce Goes is out there. Says, "As Stormy B Man, salute. Salute to you and the family. Salute to you, bro. Appreciate you guys out there, man. I really do, because when I talk about these Kung Fu films, I thought there was a huge audience for these films, but amongst the community that fool with us, I guess it's limited, and that's a shame, because if you guys come in and we talk about these movies and we review them and remember and reminisce over them and everything, all it's doing is just promoting the aspect of a part of culture of what we like. You know, this stuff could go away and people would not talk about it or whatever, and it'd be like, oh, you remember this or that? It's like, whatever happened to such and such? It's like, but I don't want to live my life like that. I want to live my life enjoying culture. I read books growing up. I read comics growing up. I watched movies, westerns, easterns. You know, it's like, it's culture, man. And when people don't want culture to thrive and survive, that's like you want to stifle life itself. You don't want life to be enriched. You know, a lot of this stuff that we were able to enjoy, some people have taken it for granted. I have never taken it for granted. That's why it's always a staple in my life and what I want to talk about. I mean, yeah, I could get on here and talk politics and all of that, but everybody talks politics and all of that, right? So here I come talking about these films, which I consider gems toward our society and what we like to do when we want to be entertained. That's what that is. It's like you know, you talk about something that make you feel good or that has had a positive impact on your life. You know, these films made people go to martial arts schools and pick up the skills of martial arts for a number of reasons, whether it was to go and be better conditioned as a person physically and mentally, or if it was to be able to protect oneself, or to learn more about the aspects of how someone across the globe that you never knew existed, you know, and how they did things, and introduce you to a way of doing things. Innovation. That's what it's all about. D. Hodges says, "I love them." Yes, so do I. That's why I talk about them, man. That's why I come on here and try to do these shows and everything. But it's not a lot of love for it. It's not a lot of love for it at all. My local audience, they don't give much a damn about this. I'm finding that most of my viewers are coming from international, that's okay too. But it's like what it says about the American people. It's like, you guys are just, you know, but if this was a twerk video with somebody shaking their behind or something, it'll have 1,000 views already in the live chat. Huh? It just goes to show, man. Huh? if I was doing something, how to make bombs, there you go. People, here they come. Look at this fool. He gonna blow himself up. It's talking about doing quality stuff, man. Quality stuff. So D Hodges says, keep doing what you do, bro. Gives us more things to talk about. Yeah, but D Hodges is like hardly people show up for it though, bro. I appreciate you. I appreciate everybody that's in the chat today. But everybody that's in the chat today, most of the people are here when I do these shows. Where's everybody else at? And I could talk more. Do you know my knowledge of Kung Fu films? I didn't realize that I had it until I came on and I was doing my boxing stuff. And I started talking about these movies. And I said, I'm going to do a Kung Fu show. And I did that first one. It was me and Hyphy. And we just said we'll do something like that when we don't have much to talk about with boxing, or if boxing is dead, or it's just stuff we don't want to discuss. And then I realized, I was like, wait a minute. I was like, dude, I know so much about these actors and actresses and the stuff because I've watched this stuff for over 40 years. I know this stuff. It's like I know it like my socks in my drawer. You understand? And I thought we'd come on and talk about it with people and be like, hey, what do you think? Whatever. And I thought that would be a thing. But you know what? It's been very shallow, man. It's been very shallow. Walter Wilder says, hey, Brother Storm, after the giant breaks apart, then a female ninja appears. Something that happened, same thing happened in Five Element Ninjas. Yeah, that's because the ninjas also use the women as a diversion and distraction as well. And that's something that they brought in this film, because the Five Ninjas film had happened already. So when they did that in this film, that's exactly what it was, But let's get down to the third act of this film, where after Damien Lau and Norman Chu's characters, Ching-Hwa and Hashimoto, when they realized that Eddie Ko was trying to, swing the balance of who could win between the two warriors by kidnapping all the other fighters and everything and taking them hostage. When they realized this, Ching-Hwa didn't want to go through with the tournament anymore. He didn't want to go through with the match because he felt like too many lives were lost and everything. And Hashimoto, who realized because of his principles and battling against the priest, which was Eddie Ko, he realized that he wasn't going to be able to go back to Japan. So win, lose, or draw, he wanted to go through with this fight because if he died in battle, he could at least leave with the reputation of having died in battle and respectability on that. If he won the battle, they weren't going to embrace him because he was too independent in his thoughts. Okay, so it's like he got to a point where he asked Ching-Hwa, he said, if you don't want to go through the fight, he was like, what if somebody close to you dies? And then he does something, I won't tell everything, but it's like they end up having the fight, okay? And Ching-Hwa is forced to face Hashimoto in the ultimate showdown in this third act. And this fight that takes place during the third act, man, it's one of the most breathtaking sequences ever shot on film for a martial arts film. This movie, the third act alone, I remember I was watching a documentary on Bruce Lee, and I didn't know about Duel to the Death at the time. The documentary came out in like 1984 or 83, and it had a clip of this movie in there, and it had a clip from that fight, the third act, with Hashimoto taking on Ching-Hwa. And I remember that as I watched the film, the documentary, I said, I got to catch that movie. What movie is that? And one of my partners told me, he was like, oh man, that's Duel to the Death. You got to check that out. So I remember seeing it for the first time, and I was just amazed at the choreography and what happened with these guys fighting on a mountain that faces the sea. And the waves are rushing, and these guys are fighting on the mountain cliff, and the water spraying them and everything. It is one of the most wonderful fight scenes ever captured on film. And I remember watching that for the first time, and I was just sitting there, jaws agape, looking at the action, looking at what I was seeing. And I said, you know what? I have never seen anything like that. It immediately became an impressive film that I had to have in my collection. And I did. And I went out and I got that film, put it in my collection. And I am proud to say that this is one of the best wuxia films I've ever seen. And I've seen a number of them. I haven't seen them all, but I've seen a number of them. And this is very high on the list. And the music, how the crescendo of the music comes and it amps up the action that they have here. And you realize this is a showdown between two men who have at this point lost so much. There's really nothing to fight for, with the exception of to embrace death. And that's why it's called Duel to the Death. A bunch of metaphors here in that, and how the film captures all of that. And how it ends. The way this film ends, it is one of the most heroic endings I've ever seen in a martial art film. So when you check it, it's like, wow, it can knock your shoes off, because it's that impressive. It's that impressive. And you know, we don't give enough credit when credit is due. That's why I sing the praises of certain films that I review, because if I didn't, the films lay dormant. People don't hear about them. People don't know about them. And you think about being safe, sheltered at home, and can't go out to the movies or whatever, and you looking for something to put in your DVD player or your Blu-ray player, a movie like this, that's what it is. That's what it is, man. Dreezy KO says, so who won the fight at the end, Stormy? It was kind of unannounced. I ain't gonna tell you. You gotta see the film for yourself. I'm not gonna tell you, man. I like to review these films, but I'm not gonna drop all the spoilers. I give you a couple just to let you know inside to kind of pique your interest. But you have to go and check it out for yourself, man. And then you can come back and tell me, hey, Stormy, that was a great film you recommended. Can you recommend another one for us? And I'll have some more. A lot of more. If you get back to me, I have a lot of more. And D. Hodges says, you know the reason why people don't watch them, because they can't read subtitles. Shaking my head. Listen, man, I got beyond that. I read a subtitle film, and it be in any language, you know, as long as they put them up on the screen. I don't like when they just flash them on the screen, because it's like, damn, I can't read that fast, you know. Leave them up there for a few seconds at least, you know. So, yeah, Walter Wilder says, these movies changed my life and have me studying karate and traveling to Japan and studying the language. Hey, absolutely. Listen, there have been so many people, Walter Wilder, whose lives have been enriched by being exposed to another culture, man. That's what that's about. It's like, you know what? We live in such a small microcosm of life, right? But imagine when you take those blinders off and you realize that there's someone on the other side of the pond that thinks like you, lives like you, or whatever, but you never knew it because they were in a different part of the world. and they speak a different language and may have skin may be a different color than yours. Huh? The Black Banner says, pride before the fall, but much pride can make you fall too. The fight finale. Walter Wilder says, Duel to the Death kind of reminds me of Japanese cherub brotherhood of the Bohakai with legendary Japanese actor Tamba. Okay. Dreezy KO says, nah, I seen the movie, but I was still confused at the end. And that means you have to see it more than once, man. Because sometimes something go around. It might go over your head or whatever. But Dreezy KO, let me say this about being confused. The fact that you said that you were confused, I would not ridicule that. Sometimes these films are shot with a certain type of depth that it takes someone to be able to break it down for you. Like me, I've been able to watch these films. There's something about martial arts and fighting that I picked up early on when I was a kid. That's why I got into boxing and everything, martial arts myself. I just understood it. I gravitated toward it. I can't explain it. It called me. Okay? I understand fighting. I just do. I understand technique. I understand why to move and how to move makes you channel energy and things like that. It's just something that happened to me. It's like a person who understands math and geometry and can count numbers and stuff like that and do it in their sleep. I can't do that. Okay? I stumbled over math in school and everything, but I can think fast and sharp. I can act fast and sharp. I walk and move slowly. But when I do that thing that I'm capable of doing, people are shocked like, oh, I didn't know you could move that fast. Oh, I didn't realize you was like, yeah. Because I don't do it until it's necessary, until I feel like it, until I want to. And that, even on a basketball court. I used to play basketball. Guys always say, man, I didn't know you could play like that. It was like, when I see you walking around down the street and stuff, it's like you just move slow but on the court, you fast and everything. I said, because it's about the economy of motion. I was like, I don't need to move fast as I'm going down the street or whatever. I just do my thing. You know what I mean? So that's how I do it. But, yeah, you know. Laws D Punch Out TV says, salute to you, brother Stormy B-Man OG. What's good with you, Laws? I appreciate you stopping by, man. D. Hodges says, Jim Kelly really got us into martial arts. If he can do it, we can do it. That's right. That's another one of those small principles that Malcolm X talked about, where he says, when you're talking about villages of people, people cannot be what they cannot see. In other words, how could you aspire to be a police officer or a lawyer or someone who owns their business if you haven't been around a lawyer or someone in the community wise? I ain't talking about going to jail. I'm talking about being around someone, a police officer lived across the street from you or whatever, and he was the same color as you, same nationality, whatever, in your culture. If you're not exposed to the things that you could aspire toward, how do you have inspiration? You don't, because it's non-existent. If only the negative persevere and prevail to be in front of your eyes, you think that everything is negative, but it's not, which is why I said when we live in that little microcosm of what we call our own personal lives, you have to take the blinders off and understand. That's why it's important to read. Very important to read. And you know, during slavery, they didn't want slaves reading. There was a reason they didn't want you reading, because of reading, there's a kinetic activity that takes place where your mind begins to have inspiration. It has interpretation. It has vision. And what happens is you will be inspired to be greater than what you are, better from where you live and things like that. And that's what it's about. So they want to shut down your growth by not allowing you to have the simplest of notions of how to handle and conduct yourself, to read, to write, to count. Practicality. Yeah, so D. Hodges says Michael J. White, Wesley Snipes, Black belts with degrees. Yeah, there you go. Walter Wilder says, the movies are a part of our DNA, Storm. We love them. Yes, sir. I agree, man. I agree. So I want to take a moment to thank everybody that came out. I see I have more likes than people in the chat, which is nice. I guess people stopped by and they hit the like button, and then some moved around. So I appreciate that. Duel to the Death is an excellent wuxia swords play film. Wuxia means swords play. So, okay, sword fighting. So please take a moment out of your time when you're looking for a good action film to check out. Check out Duel to the Death. It's an excellent film, something that you can really enjoy. I guarantee it. And tell me how you felt about it after you checked it out. And listen to me when I say this, and I'm very sincere when I say it. If you're ever looking for a film, if you want a recommendation, I can give you something. And you could just tell me what kind of films you like. And I can tell you a martial art film catered to what you like. Okay? Because there are subgenres under the genre of Kung Fu films. There are subgenres. So there are so many types. There's at least 7 or 8 different types of subgenres that are under the martial art film. And listen, I could break those down to you as well, man. You know? So I appreciate everybody that came out, man. This has been another Kung Fu Film Focus where I had a chance to talk about Duel to the Death, one of my favorite wuxia films of all time from 1983, Golden Harvest Studios, directed by Tony Chung, and also action choreographed by Tony Ching. So if you guys catch me on the next one, I'll have another dynamic martial art film for you. But that's all I got for you at this time. This is Stormy B, man. I'm going to check on out, let you guys get back to your Sunday, and we will be talking Kung Fu again very soon. Okay? Appreciate you all.